This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Erie to Philadelphia and Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Maura, welcome.
Hello, Charlie.
So what's going on? What's new in Harrisburg?
Oh, it's a very busy time, it seems. A lot of appropriations hearings and the usual this time of year.
Well, we have to keep our eye on what's going on with the Attorney General and
yes, we do.
Our new state treasurer situation. There's
lots of rumors.
Yes, certainly are, certainly are. And certainly one of the topics that, of course, merits a lot of attention on the Hill is health care.
Yes.
And we're fortunate to have with us today someone who can tell us and our viewers a lot more than we know right now about health care. We're fortunate enough to have with us Kim Kockler, who's the Vice President of Government Affairs for Independence Blue Cross. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you want to tell us a little bit about Independence Blue Cross first, before we start on the issues and how it fits into Pennsylvania's healthcare landscape?
Absolutely. Independence Blue Cross is based in Philadelphia, and we are a Blue Cross plan, which means we serve the 5-county Philadelphia area as Independence Blue Cross. However, through subsidiary business, we actually are in 25 states and the District of Columbia and serve nearly 10 million people. So it's a very it's an energetic and growing company. Very proud to be a part of it, and we're doing terrific things in Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare businesses. So I feel very fortunate to be part of the organization.
So from a government affairs perspective, you must be very busy.
Yes, yes. Although my focus is mostly state legislative issues, we obviously have a huge tie-in to the federal issues since passage of the Affordable Care Act, as you know, which was transformational in terms of changing the world of health care and health insurance. We have a lot of crossover now with that law and what happens in the states. So it's a very interesting time.
A lot to learn. Yeah.
Every day.
Well, Kim, what is driving up the cost of health care? Certainly, this is an issue that is on the mind of every Pennsylvanian. Every Pennsylvania family is affected by the fact that health care costs have been creeping up. What's driving this?
We think there are a variety of factors, but I think we will notice, and data is actually proving to us that the cost of your health insurance has leveled off somewhat. Now, I think there are a variety of factors for that, and the Affordable Care Act is certainly one of those factors, because under that act, insurers were required to provide a specific set of benefits. We were all sort of put in the same box, if you will, so that folks could, all understand what their choices were. There were required covered benefits, required amounts of cost sharing for consumers. I think consumers are becoming more savvy about what they purchase.
I think they were forced to be more savvy.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. So
Which is a good thing.
I think, and we think that's a good thing
Better
too.
Educated, yeah.
Once you know a little bit more about what you're buying, you just will feel a little better about it and make better choices. So we know that you have the obvious doctors, hospitals, all the things that go into making up your health care, your health insurance. But one of the things we have noticed of late is there has been an absolute spike in the cost of prescription drugs. And we think this is something that really needs to be brought a little bit more to the forefront of the healthcare discussion at this point. We've seen a lot of reform for hospitals, a lot of reform for doctors, and a lot of reform for insurers, with consumers in the middle of all that. But the cost of prescription drugs, not just specialty but other drugs, has really sort of taken off in recent years, and we think that's something that needs to be talked about.
Well, if we were to move towards a greater transparency with pharmaceutical drugs, I mean, it's going to tell us the drugs are high in cost. What will we gain from that? How will that help the average consumer or the insurance companies to have greater transparency? We
think there are, and just to frame it up a little bit, because when we say, you can say words like rising and skyrocketing, those all sound, inflammatory, and people should be excited about it, but until you really know. So I think one of the most recent and best examples about a high-cost drug is Sovaldi. It was always in the news. It's a cure for hepatitis C, an actual cure, which is an amazing thing. So you can cure this disease previously that you could not in most people. for a cost of $84,000 a year. But again, the $84,000 is a big number, but you're curing it. So that's, set that aside. That's definitely one of those breakthrough drugs that, doesn't come along often, although I think we'll see more of them now.
Kim, do you have to take that for the rest of your life then, or is there a spot where you complete your intake of it?
I think you complete your intake, but there are other things you will have to keep taking as a result for the maintenance of it. And that's another point to make in this discussion. There is a cholesterol drug that's supposed to come onto the market, I think, in middle of the year this year. So the cost isn't terribly, terribly frightening. Probably high-ended it'd be $10,000 a year. But there are 3.5 million people in the country with cholesterol problems. So when you do that math, and that is something, to your point, Charlie, that's a rest of your life medication. And we're finding a lot of things that are coming to market now are things you would take for the rest of your life. So none of this is to say that these are wonderful breakthroughs. These are wonderful developments. And I think the drug industry is to be commended. It's a very difficult and competitive industry. However, I think that we all need to start, to your point, Mara, knowing more about what goes into the cost.
Why is it so high?
Yes. Yeah. Why could you buy? We've all heard of an antibiotic, doxycycline. It's been around for years and years. It actually treats Lyme disease, and many people have Lyme disease. In 2013, you could buy that for $20 a bottle. In 2014, $1,800 a bottle.
Okay, wait a minute. There's something really wrong there.
A 9,000% plus increase.
Yeah.
So
Why?
That's where we're at. Why?
I've taken doxycycline, and I don't remember paying quite that much for it.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Well, and that's the other
price
part.
has increased.
You make a huge. You wouldn't know that, Charlie, because you probably pay a co-payment. You'll pay a $5 or a $10 or more dollar co-payment. So consumers are a little bit hidden from the true cost of the drugs. I have actually started asking at the pharmacy, so if I were to pay for this retail, what, how much would that be?
Yeah.
And it's shocking.
Well, it is interesting because I know that they will call you now because there are some drugs that just aren't covered, and they'll call and tell you this is what you're going to have to pay, and it can be pretty crazy. So it's, I like that we will know more. I like that we'll have a better understanding, and the pharmaceutical companies will have a chance to tell us why they need to charge so much. But what can be done? I mean, having all that information is meaningless to the average consumer if we can't somehow bring the cost down.
And I think just the first step of transparency. I know in the insurance world, just to make a comparison, we file rates every year. We have to file rates with the federal government now so that people know what our products cost, and that has to be broken down. And it's all become much more transparent. It makes it makes consumers, I think, smarter, and maybe they will make a choice, and maybe that doctor will think about that before prescribing the drug. I just think the first step of having the information where we have none today, I think that's a good first step. I don't think it will solve everything more. I don't think it will automatically be, a race to the bottom. I don't.
Yeah, embarrass them into lowering the cost.
Well,
I don't think that's going to work.
No, I don't think it will either. Not in an industry so large and so competitive. But I think it is a step, and I think it's an important step for consumers and providers.
Well, you mentioned some pretty high-end specialty drugs, and you were heading in the direction of saying it sounds like this also impacts some pretty common drugs for consumers too. So it's not just these new ones that are coming out, is it? That there's lack of transparency in the
It's really not, and I think it's one of the most startling examples I had heard recently was on insulin. Now, insulin has been around since I think the 20s or 30s. So insulin's been around for a long, long time. It's a very well-known, for diabetics. But all of a sudden, we're seeing this uptick in consumers who can't afford their diabetes. They're coming into the doctor's office, their blood sugar levels are off the charts, and doctors are saying, what is the matter? And they're saying that their insulin is becoming unaffordable. Now, after all these years, why would a drug such as insulin be so unaffordable? Well, it turns out that the less expensive, older versions of insulin have been taken off the market.
So they make incremental improvements in these drugs, and the consumers have to pay the price for that.
Exactly.
Wow.
Why, Kim, is this is not just a federal issue, this is a state issue as well.
Sure.
Could you address that?
It's very much a state issue because it affects state budgets, it affects the Medicaid budget, it affects the corrections budget. To make a comparison, in the state of California, the state will pay more for the hepatitis C drug, to pay for that Sovaldi drug, than they pay for their K through 12 education system. Stunner.
Yeah.
It's a stunner. It's just not fathomable, and we can't stay on that track. And I think that's our biggest point. This is just not a sustainable trajectory. We have to do something to get this out in the light of day a little bit more and sort of inform people.
Well, there are several states that are moving in the direction of mandating this kind of transparency that we're talking about. What do you think Pennsylvania can or should do on the state level?
We do know there are proposals in California and in Oregon. They're being actively discussed right now. We'd like to see legislation introduced here that would require that transparency for drugs over a certain threshold amount, certainly, to talk about some of the things that what went into the research and development. What were the costs to develop this drug? Do you have patient assistance programs available for this drug where those with a lower income, may be helped or get some assistance with that drug? We'd like to just know a lot more about what goes into this price and why you price as you do.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk to her all day.
But we only have about 45 more seconds.
Okay.
Have you or other folks from your industry had a chance to huddle yet with the new administration? And what do you expect from the new administration in the way of healthcare policies? Anything new?
Well, the industry is taking this very seriously, and we are raising it among the business community that, as you know, also pays part of that bill. Mm-hmm. But great point about the administration. We are just starting those discussions and hoping to raise that awareness as part of the budget debate, frankly. This is a big issue for many aspects of the state budget.
Okay, Kim, thank you very much for joining Mara and me today. And we look for you to come back in the near future and give us an update.
I'd love it. Thank you.
Okay. We'll be right back with the second segment of Behind the Headlines right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, helping hospitals provide healing, health, and hope to communities across the state. And by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions to make the commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States. And by Blackford Ventures, LLC, a private equity firm seeking to make significant investments in real estate, proven business enterprises, and their leaders. Find out more at www.blackfordventures.com. And by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. On this segment, Maura and I are joined by a former state senator, Mike Brubaker from Lancaster County, who now has a new position. You want to tell us about your new position and your new venture? Because leaving the state Senate is rather unusual. People don't do it sometimes until they're carried out. But you left on your own volition and on your own terms to start a new chapter in your life. That's do you miss the Senate, Senator Brubaker or Mike?
Once a senator, always a senator.
Yes. Well, Charlie and Maura, thank you so much for having me on the show, first of all. Yes, I was in state Senate for 8 years. I'm from Lancaster County. I'm the 8th generation Brubaker from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. My wife and I have 3 children and 3 grandchildren, so we actually have the 9th and 10th generation Brubaker coming along. Some roots in Lancaster County. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed my term in the Pennsylvania State Senate. I would not take it back. I learned a great deal. But when I first ran 8.5, almost 9 years ago now, I realized it would be either 2 terms or 3 terms for me if the voters gave me the opportunity to go back. So about halfway through my second term, I realized I had accomplished about all that I felt I could I really enjoyed it immensely, learned a great deal, but the private sector was calling me back. So I've always been a private sector entrepreneurial type of person. So I did 8 years in the state Senate, and now I'm CEO of Blackford Ventures, and I'm really immensely enjoying that job.
So there is life after the Senate.
Yeah. Well, there sure is. My schedule's as busy as it ever has been before, and I think our small company of roughly 10 people is a litmus test on the economy of Pennsylvania, because what we do is put private money, equity, into the Pennsylvania economy. So if you're growing your business, if you have a new innovation, we as a private equity firm would love to put some money into your new adventure. And we're getting a lot of calls. We weren't sure if the phone would ring at all. But we're getting an awful lot of telephone calls. A lot of people want to grow their businesses in Pennsylvania and beyond. So that's a really good sign for the economy.
That's a great sign for our economy. Well, let's talk a little bit about our economy. You know, depending on which side of the aisle, we can still use that, which side of the aisle you're on, you're going to hear our economy is tanking. We're one of the worst in the nation. And then on the other hand, you're going to hear, you know, we're not doing so poorly. What's your sense? You know, being out there on your own now with your company, what's your sense of Pennsylvania's economy?
Well, thanks for the question, Maura. I'm bullish on the Pennsylvania economy. I'm an optimist. I was born that way. I'll die that way. So I need to disclose that. I think you can certainly look at our very broad economy, and you look at sectors that aren't doing so good and get a pessimistic point of view. I'd rather look at the sectors that are doing well. And we have a lot. Retail is coming back. We're building major retail facilities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So when retail, and they can build anywhere.
That's great news.
It is great news. E-commerce fulfillment centers are being built right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They could be built anywhere. So they're looking for a northeast connection. The last year, when I was in the State General Assembly, we passed a transportation bill. Because of that bill, there's money to spend on infrastructure projects. So it's not only roads and bridges that are being built in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and that means jobs, but also engineering is full steam ahead. And the agriculture sector, Pennsylvania's strong in ag, very strong. And the components inside of agriculture they're really doing great are apples, chickens, and eggs. Apples, chickens, and eggs. Yeah. ACE, right?
The fact that you know that is amazing.
Well, we have a very strong apple industry. We always have. There was a French company that was looking at the United States to house themselves. They chose Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Lancaster County apples. Some of those apples are coming out of the Adams County region. But we're really excited the fact that we landed a French company here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to make really high-quality applesauce.
Wow.
Well, you were a two-term senator, and you were very popular in Lancaster County, still are. And my goodness, you've accomplished so much in a short period of time. But you were, one of the things that you were in the Senate on Capitol Hill was the chair of the Senate Finance Committee. How did your experience as Senate Finance Chair translate into your what you're doing now in terms of economic development for the Commonwealth?
Well, I was my first 4 years. I was the chair of the Senate Agricultural Committee. I was very proud to have that job, and then I went to the Senate Finance Committee, as you just said, for my last 4 years, and that was a very high-profile job, and I was very honored to have it. I joke to people, and I'm not sure the joke is too far from reality, that I got the job because I think nobody else wanted it. Because
it's one of the tougher ones.
It is one of the tougher ones, Maura, you're right. And one of the things that we needed to deal with was pension reform.
Oh, and still need to deal with that.
And we still need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Very few people know, but there was a 50-0 vote. And actually, I went up with my iPhone when that 50-0 vote was taken. 50 votes for, 0 votes against a pension reform bill that came out of my committee that I worked really hard to get through. And what we did is we kind of watered it down so it was for public officials only in the end. And of course, the House did not pass that. But I'm not too sure if that's not historic. A 50-0 vote on any kind of pension reform bill in the United States. I'm not sure that's ever been done before.
Well, I don't know how many times I've said this with various guests as we talk about the pension reform. It does impact the bond rating in Pennsylvania, which of course impacts our economy. To me, it seems like a no-brainer. This is something that has got to be fixed. It was not part of the new governor's budget proposal, but it's still an issue that's floating out there. What do the supporters of pension reform have to do to get it through? What's it going to take?
It's going to take the voters of Pennsylvania to be clear as to what their desire is. It's clear to me that it is in Pennsylvania's best interest for this pension reform issue to be resolved. If we don't get it fixed, our indebtedness, long-term financial obligation to the pension fund will continue to grow. Some people believe that if the economy just turns around, the economy will fix our unfunded liability, and it won't. It can't. So it needs to be modified. It needs to be reformed. It needs to be changed. There's no doubt in my mind about it. I think we need to tell that story in a nonpartisan way. We can be respectful to, of course, to the teaching profession who has a defined benefit retirement plan. We need to be respectful to people that are in that system. We can change the system for future employees without changing historically what people have earned. I would be opposed, I was opposed when I was a member, to changing the deal that you had historically. That was a deal made and needs to be honored. But I think it's absolutely imperative that we change the pension system moving forward.
Do other states have examples of pension reform that Pennsylvania could use that you know of off the top of your head?
Yes, there are a lot of examples, and there's two national organizations. When you're a member of a state general assembly, you can belong to two different organizations if you want to, or participate and become better informed globally. One is a CSG, Council of State Governments, and the other is NCSL.
Which is the National Conference of State Legislatures.
Very good, Charlie.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you.
Just for our viewers.
Sorry for the acronym.
No, that's all right. It's all right.
So I've gone to those organizations when I was in the General Assembly to get some, again, unbiased information. It's not Republican. It's not Democratic. It's just simply unbiased, third-party analysis. What states have done what states have tried and failed, what states have tried and succeeded, and why did that all happen. So I think those two organizations are a tremendous resource for members that are generally underutilized.
So what do you think Pennsylvania can or should do to improve our economy? I know the governor has several proposals in his budget, one of which is a pretty significant tax, corporate tax reduction. But what do you think would be some key initiatives or programs that could be put into place to help us have you like our economy even more?
Well, the business tax climate in Pennsylvania is the highest in the nation and the highest in the world. I've been told that if Pennsylvania were a country, we would be the country with the highest taxation for businesses.
So that makes us right there. That makes us perhaps the most difficult place to locate a business in the world.
Yes, it does, Charlie, and that's remarkable. So we have tax disincentives for businesses to locate here. So what's on the other side of the ledger? It's our
and people
workforce.
on Capitol Hill know that, don't they?
They've known that for years.
They do.
Yeah.
But of course, every time you reduce a business tax, you either need to reduce size and scope of government, which I was in favor of as a Republican in the Senate for 8 years, or you need to increase taxation somewhere else if you're going to keep your government engine running at the same speed.
Yeah. So do you think reduction would help?
There's no doubt about it. If we're going to try to attract jobs in, reducing business taxation is a wise thing to do. So I believe the governor's proposal, and I was on this governor's transition team inside of the revenue transition team. I believe it's to eliminate capital stock and franchise. We've been stepping it down. I believe the governor's
It was supposed to be 10 years, but I think we're on 15 or something.
I think we are, Marty. You're right.
It's taken a while.
So that's one. That's a reduction. That's big. That's a big deal. Because we have this high taxation, as you said, Charlie, is a negative attractant to business here, but we have this workforce and we have our geography. We're right in the middle of the northeast part of the United States of America where a significant part of the population is, and people want to employ our workers because we have great work ethic. I always thought the work ethic was just spectacular in Lancaster County. We have these agrarian roots, and people they get up early, they work hard, they keep focused on their job and their duties. But then, as I traveled around the state as a state senator, I realized, my word, even though Lancaster County workers are great, it's essentially that way across the entire Commonwealth, and we really are uniquely positioned to deliver to an employer a great workforce. So that's a huge advantage.
So it seems that when those taxes come down, that Pennsylvania has a lot of resources and a lot of pent-up energy and creativity and innovation to release, and that we could have quite a business renaissance in Pennsylvania. That's why I was so surprised. Maybe the governor was just caught off guard, but I guess you saw where he pointed out that one of the problems with our economy was simply that Pennsylvanians don't have enough self-esteem, and that we're humble, modest people, and if we only had more self-esteem, the economy would be better and we'd have more jobs. I wondered how that struck you.
I think if you could take that quote back, you would. I like this governor. He's a nice guy. Governor Wolf is a nice person. There's no doubt about that. He has a business experience background, obviously a very successful business. So I always wish everyone in elected office well, because I want our Commonwealth to do well.
Certainly.
I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, if you're liberal, conservative, all these titles and boxes that we put people in. I want Pennsylvania to be successful, and I want this governor to be successful. And I'm hopeful that the Pennsylvania General Assembly, which is Republican-controlled House and Senate, see it that way as well. Let's just work together to identify some opportunities for the state, and we have a lot. And I don't think we can close any kind of conversation in Pennsylvania on the economy without mentioning Marcellus Shale. That's today still a big question mark. I'm pro Marcellus Shale for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Of course, we have the Marcellus, which is roughly a mile deep, then we have the Utica below that. And now we're drilling into the Utica, and it is incredible resource.
Yeah.
So Pennsylvania can be an energy economic power for the world if we just do it right. Of course, nobody wants to sacrifice the environment.
Right.
But this governor wants to extract more tax revenue out of the Marcellus Shale business, and there's only so much tax revenue you can get without dropping prices up. So there's a delicate balance.
Right.
But I think I'm hopeful that the governor and the General Assembly can find a way to allow that industry to flourish. It increases jobs. It delivers to us low-cost natural gas made right here, where we don't have to go to the Middle East to get it. There's just win. I see win-win-win the whole way around. And the fact is, we can control the environmental outcomes.
Well, Mike, we wish you the best with Blackford Ventures, with this new
I wanted to find out
you're
who he's investing in, so we have to bring him back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we hope you'll come back again next week to catch another episode of Behind the Headlines. We'll see you then.